Hey guys, what's up? It is week 394. Bunch of reviews for you, so let's hop right into this. First one up is from Arrow Video, and this is a 4K of the Chronicles of Riddick. It's the Chronicles. I didn't want to say Chronicle of Riddick. But yeah, Chronicles of Riddick. This came out in 2003. This is a sequel to Pitch Black, which I think was made in, 99, 2000? Maybe I'm a little off, maybe 2001. But same director, obviously same star in Vin Diesel. And this movie wanted to do a different approach than Pitch Black. Pitch Black's more your sci-fi kind of horror film. This is more your sci-fi fantasy kind of deal, action kind of movie. And this picks up after, of course, Pitch Black. And this time it's a big scaling kind of epic film. It's over 2 hours. There's the director's cut and theatrical cut on this release. But the director's cut was the cut I was most familiar with. And I initially saw this in 2003 and actually was a pretty decent fan of this one. Vin Diesel is the main star, of course, but you have Keith David makes an appearance again in here. And, Nick Chinlund is the actor that always stood out to me in here. So Vin Diesel has gone into, he's reclusive, he's gone into hiding after the Pitch Black story. He did have like a direct connection with Keith David and the other survivors, so there was a friendship that was there, but he he kind of had to leave to become, to protect them and whatnot. So I guess what is happening is a group of bounty hunters come after him, led by Nick Chinlund, and he gets the upper hand on them, of course. And he is kind of pulled to this planet, I would say. I guess it's a planet. You know, I always have a hard time believing it's jumping around all these different planets. It's very much in that big, expanded kind of Star Wars kind of universe thing. So he gets pulled to a planet and is told that there's these kind of weird race of people. I think they're like Necrons, something along with the dead. It's kind of their title. And what they're doing is kind of what the Empire did in Star Wars, going around. The Empire would blow up buildings and basically take over the entire, galaxy and universe and everything like that. But what these guys are doing is they're going in and killing everybody. They either convert them or they kill them. Kind of manifest destiny, right? So with these guys, they're led by, Carl Urban is one of them, great actor from Dredd. And Colm Feore, he's an actor you've seen in a bunch of stuff. I think he's in Paycheck by John Woo, which is a really not a great movie, but he's pretty solid in the film as well. So Thaddeus Newton as well is in here. So they're like this group of weird kind of dead soldiers that kind of travel and basically convert you or kill you. So they think that the whole galaxy is going to end. So they want to ask Vin Diesel, who has kind of a mysterious past, what his possible race was and everything like that. And is he the destined one to stop these people, or maybe something else? Yeah, so that's basically the plot and the setup of this movie. There's a bunch of different locations. A huge chunk of this movie, we haven't done that initial planet, and then kind of the villains kind of ship or planet kind of deal. But a huge chunk of this movie is a prison film. I'd say 45 minutes when you're watching the director's cut is actually a prison film. So there's this huge, amazing kind of Vin Diesel's captured by the bounty hunters, and he kind of finds somebody he was looking for, and he has to deal with all these goons and villains. And we introduce all these other characters like Preacher. I think the character's name's Father something. He's a great character, and there's this giant prison escape, and they have to race because this planet is so hot that if you get caught in the sun, you melt. So we have a big showdown between the prison guards and all that kind of stuff, and the bounty hunters, and there's a race before time. Now, it's not necessarily like a horror film at all in this one, but it's more, like I said, your fantasy action adventure. Vin Diesel's pretty solid in it. He has some one-liners that are very dated, very funny. The practical effects are really fantastic. You don't really notice there's that many practical effects in here because they're mixed in with CGI. Some of the CGI is obviously dated. It's over 20 years old now, and it doesn't look great. But when you see the work that they did behind the scenes, it's pretty astonishing, honestly. This was a huge budgeted movie. And I have to say, this is probably one of the horniest movies I've ever seen. It's actually really funny. Everybody and their brother wants to fuck Vin Diesel. It's really funny. A lot of one-liners and flirting and back and forth. A lot of zany, weird, goofy characters that kind of stand out, that are likable and memorable. Overall, Chronicles of Riddick is a lot of fun. It's kind of a space opera fantasy thing. It's got its own rich, thick mythology that I enjoyed. Revisiting it, I really didn't know what I was going to think. And coming away from it, I actually enjoyed it. The 4K looked pretty solid. The sound, the surround sound 5.1 was really good. Some of the CGI doesn't age the best, but the practical stuff and the matte paintings, they look pretty solid. This has a bunch of features in here, including a third bonus disc. So, of course, we have... here we go. 4K for theatrical, and we have Ambition on Another Scale, chronicling a blockbuster sequel, a brand new feature-length documentary on the film featuring interviews with writer-director David, I'm going to have trouble saying his last name, Twohy, actors Keith David and Linus Roach, storyboard artist Brian Murray, concept artist Matt Codd, miniature effects artist Ian Hunter, and digital matte artist Dylan Cole. This is long. They go in depth about the background and the special effects and everything like that. Keith David's pretty honest about how he feels about the movie. He's like, you know, some things work, some things didn't. Is it perfect? No, but it's pretty good for what it is. And not even to say for what it is, you know. I know somebody was just bitching about that statement the other day on a podcast that I listened to, but it's funny for what it is. But no, it's pretty good for everything. What else do we have here? Then we have Realizing Riddick, a new interview with the director and creation of the character. They go in a little depth and they start talking about the video game, I think, and these kind of special features. And the third one, of course, just called Riddick. Back to Black, a new interview with Murray and his continuing work with the Riddick saga. Chronicles of Cult Film Celebrity, a new interview with David on the role of Imam. And then we have, for special features on the director's cut, we have the archival stuff. So we have the archival commentary with the director and Vin, archival with just director and co-stars Urban and Alexa Davlos, archival introduction by the director, creation of the new mecha. All the featurettes here are on here. So Riddick Rises, Keep What You Kill, visual effects revealed, interactive production calendar, production vignettes. So we have all this stuff, 3 deleted scenes, virtual guide to Chronicles of Riddick, a series of short animated segments explaining the world of the film. This basically has all the characters speaking and their voice and everything like that. Tombs, Chase Log, a short film narrated by Nick Chillen in character, a guided tour of the set by Vin Diesel, along with 360-degree panoramic views of 8 sets from the film. The sets are amazing. They're enormous. They look really great. On-set interviews with the director, Diesel, Dench. I forgot Judi Dench is in here as an elemental, which is pretty fun. Urban, Colin Fleury, Alexa Davos, Thaddeus Newton, and producer Scott Krumpf. Promotional interviews with the director, and etc. You know. And the third disc here. So we have they're all Dolby Vision, by the way. Theatrical cut and alternate 1:7:8. At 1 aspect ratio. An Escape from Butcher Bay, a compilation of cutscenes from the acclaimed tie-in video game. A lowdown to television special produced to promote the film's original release. So yeah, this is they go into the whole story of Chronicles of Riddick because Pitch Black was a pickup. Basically, the company that was doing it went out of business, and they I can't remember, the big company Universal came and picked this up and another one, and they were like, well, let's give these ones a theatrical release and whatnot. And they did really well with Pitch Black, so well that they decided to make this big blockbuster sequel. And at this point, Vin Diesel was already in the Fast and the Furious movies. You know, he's kind of a franchise king. He's always trying to make new ones too in some of the movies. But yeah, he's in the Fast and the Furious, the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Chronicles of Riddick movies. These are good sci-fi movies, and it was a serious movie, and it wasn't an already established huge giant property, so it was kind of cool to see this. And you know, Chronicles of Riddick is fun, solid movie. Okay, now we have an upgrade here. Arrow put this out a little bit ago, a few years, probably like 5 or 6 years ago on Blu-ray, and this is Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988. Now we have a 4K update. Unfortunately, there's not really any new updated things on here from my understanding. It looks like it's all the stuff from 2017. No real complaints. There is a feature-length documentary on here, so you really don't need any special more new features. Maybe a new commentary would be cool, but so basically the featurette on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark is feature-length, has a bunch of the people, including the director, Cassandra Peterson, Kurt Fuller, tons of people that were involved in the movie. Really fun. They seem to have solid memories of it. But Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. So here we go. I do not remember what I said about the previous review, but rewatching this was actually the second time watching it. The first time I saw Mistress of the Dark, Elvira, was from the 2017 Blu-rays. There is a sequel to this that was made in the early 2000s by, I can't remember the guy's name, but he writes a lot of books. He's a film historian and loves film and everything like that. Can't think of his name. That's a shame on my part. But Elvira Mistress of the Dark. You know, everybody's introduction, I think, to Elvira was the thriller videos, the late night horror host kind of deal, and she was absolutely hilarious. Cassandra Peterson owned that character, the puns, and everything like that. So they decided to make a film of it, of course. And this movie is not as horror as one would think. It's more of a comedy, fish out of water kind of story. Elvira is supposed to inherit this house from her aunt she didn't even know she had. She wants to go to Vegas to do this go-go show and make a lot of money because she wants off her crappy TV show. Very self-aware, very comedic, and so she goes to this small town that's very, you know, morally high class and everything like that. So she goes there and she sticks out like a sore thumb. She's got her gothic stuff and she's making puns with the locals. A lot of, you know, famous character actors are in here, including Daniel Green from Hands of Steel, the Sergio Martina movie, and he's got a great little small town innocence feel about him. And I love him in the interviews. He seems like a genuinely sweet, nice guy, and just you know, wholesome kind of dude. And it was very nice to see him out here, and he's great in the movie. He does his job really well. But, you know, Elvira is mixing it up with all these people, and it leaves up for all these kind of funny gags. You'll recognize the kid from Dream Warriors in here, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Recognized him right away. Kurt Fuller, fantastic actor from the 80s and early 90s and stuff like No Holds Barred and Running Man and Miracle Mile. He's very good in this. Not perfect. I wish there was more of him, but he's solid. He does his job. But there's also tons of other people that you'll recognize here and there, just small little bit roles, a lot of gags, a lot of funny stuff. Great special effects when we come to like the witch recipe, because the whole story boils down to, in this house there is an ancient kind of cookbook is what Elvira thinks it is, but it's a spell book that her aunt left her, of course. But her evil brother, who's this rich angry uncle kind of guy, wants the cookbook, wants the spell book, of course, and there's this giant fight, and eventually she's going to learn how to use it, have a giant standoff. There is a wild orgy scene, right, that all the townspeople partake in when they're all middle-aged and old, kind of funny, goofy stuff. And there is also kind of this weird kind of creature that is created at one point. The special effects are top-notch. Overall, Elvira is a fun kind of fish out of water comedy, then horror kind of movie. No, not explicitly full of nudity or anything like that. I would say it's a PG-13. So yeah, it's just a fun, zany 80s movie. As far as the special features, brand new 4K restoration, of course, Dolby Vision, audio uncompressed stereo audio 2.0. 2.0. The audio is not great. It's fine. It's completely acceptable, but it's not like a remastered amazing audio. Optional English subtitles for deaf and hard of hearing. Introduction by film director James Signorelli. 2017 audio commentary with director, hosted by Fangoria editor Tony Timpone. 2017 audio commentary with Patterson Lundquist. Runs the webmaster of Elvira's site and judge of U.S. TV show The Search for the Next Elvira. Archival audio commentary with Cassandra Peterson and Edie McClure and writer John Paragon. To Macabre, the making of Elvira, Mistress of Dark, 2018 version of the feature-length documentary on the making of the film, including interviews with various cast and crew, archival material. Like I said, hour and like 20 minutes. Recipe for Terror, creation of the Pot Monster, 2018 version of the featurette and the concept and design of the Pot Monster, as well as the film's other SFX. There's storyboards, extensive image galleries, trailer, teasers, reversible sleeve, and commissioned artwork by Sarah Deck. Illustrated collector's booklet featuring writings on the film by Sam Irving. Sam Irving is the director of the second Elvira movie. Kat Ellinger and Patterson Lundquist. So a very fun movie. I would recommend checking this out if you've never seen it. Elvira, Cassandra Peterson is just it's an American treasure to love her. She's like our version of Dolly Parton. Yeah, so check this one out. Great stuff. Okay, we have another upgrade here, and this is the Giant Spider Invasion from 1975. I don't know why I sounded like Stanley when I did that. This is by Bill Rebane, and this is from Dark Force. This is an upgraded from their Blu-ray. And it, no features on here, but it does have a commentary track, a brand new commentary track, and it is Demon Dave and Joe Savage Tracks Volume 3 featuring Doug Dunning and Randy Cognata. And these commentaries, if anybody's ever heard them, are funny, they're goofy, they go way off track, they talk about dating, they insult each other. It's just fun, back and forth nonsense. Demon is a wild guy, he's a character, everybody on here is a character, and the commentary is fun. Now, Bill Rebane, of course, was kind of a regional director. He did stuff like Croaked, Frogman, but he had a box set that Arrow put out that had a slew of things in there, like the Alpha Incident, Demons of Ludlow, and just a couple other ones too. What's this big one that everybody would probably know? Man, Giant Spider Invasion is probably his most popular, but Alpha Incident's pretty big as well. I actually really think the Alpha Incident's a pretty cool film. I always mix up, those two box sets of William Griffey and Bill Rebane came out around the same time. So I think Bill Rebane is Weird Wisconsin. So we got that quality here. So I love my spider attacks movies, and for the most part, this is rated PG on the back here, but there is nudity, which is funny because it's not your mama's PG, as they would say. I don't know who would say it, but I'm sure they're stupid, and so am I. But so essentially what we have here is kind of this farmer. He's cheating on his wife, doesn't like her. He goes out and sleeps around and whatnot. And a meteor crashes. And at first they start messing with him, and they find there's these like kind of diamonds or gems in there. So they're like, wow, we're going to be rich. But also what comes with the money and the diamonds and gems is spiders. And over time, this whole town is infested with giant spiders. They start smaller, but then by the end of it, there's one that's just on a fucking Volkswagen driving around attacking people. There's some real fun carnage shots of the spider attacking like a whole like kind of festival. Yeah, it's Jaws all over again, right? 1975, the same year. I don't know how fast this was put out, if they saw Jaws or not, but so it's like, hey, we're not closing down our little fair. And then of course the spiders attack. It is fun. It is kind of Hicksploitation in a lot of ways, kind of backwoods kind of characters that I enjoy. Nothing of that magnitude ever happens, but it's great cover art. But so we do have some craziness, right? We have the sheriff is of course played by the skipper from Gilligan's Island, and he is so jovial in the movie, almost too jovial to do his job. He's like, hey, Alan, what is his name? Alan Hale, I think. Classic actor, but I know him from Gilligan's Island reruns of it, watched it a million times. But he's fine in it. He's fun in it. The biggest actor I think is probably him. There's some nudity, like I said. Just a little bit. There's some sleaziness, and there's some spider attacks. Overall, it's a fun kind of B movie. I would recommend it. It looks really good. It looks really good on 4K for a regional low-budget movie. And the sound was good, too. This one, I think it had a 5.1 mix, if I'm not mistaken. But I thought the sound came across pretty good. But anyways, a lot of fun. I know Code Red has the Code Red logo on there. But Dark Force has a couple 4Ks out there. I know they put out Scream and Mirror Mirror. And I think they have a couple other ones, too. But yeah, the Giant Spider Invasion. Worth checking out if you've never seen it. It's a lot of fun. I would directly compare it to something like Kingdom of the Spiders, but even more low budget. If that makes sense. And no Shatner. But Kingdom of Spiders is kind of in line with Giant Spider Invasion. But this is a fun film. Check it out. Alright, so we're going to do this how I did the last box set, the J-Horror Rising. This is the Shaw Brothers Volume 3 box set. We're going to go by disc by disc. Every week I'm going to do another disc. If it has one or two movies on it, that's how we're going to do it. Watch the features and everything like this. So, of course, this is an amazing set from Shaw Brothers from Arrow Video. And it has all these features on there and all these great movies. There is, I think, 14 different films on here. And the first one up is disc 1. I can go through the discs just to let you guys know everything that's on here. One-Armed Swordsman, Return of the One-Armed Swordsman, The New One-Armed Swordsman, The Lady Hermit, Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, The 14 Amazons, The Magic Blade, Clans of Intrigue, Jade Tiger, The Sentimental Swordsman, The Avenging Eagle, Killer Constable, Buddha's Palm, Bastard Swordsman, and then a disc of bonus features on disc 9. We are starting with disc 1, of course, The One-Armed Swordsman, which is a movie that I'd heard about for a very long time, 1967, early Shaw Brothers kind of flick for this kind of deal, although I think they were making movies in the 50s, even some ghost stories and whatnot. And this stars Jimmy Wang Yu, who would go on to be in Man from Hong Kong, but I know him from Chinese Boxer and One Arm Boxer and stuff like that. So Jimmy Wang Yu was like kind of one of the first action stars. Now, originally he wasn't like an actual martial artist. He was just an athletic guy that was good at stunt choreographing and everything and got put in these movies. Now, this does early on start like kind of the crippled kind of guys. Like Shaw Brothers would later do Crippled Avengers, and then there's all these off-take movies that are completely ridiculous, like Crippled Masters, where it's like the one guy has no arms and one guy has no legs. So this time, this guy's got one fucking arm. But then you predate that earlier, you have Zatoichi, which is funny because the One-Armed Swordsman eventually would have a crossover film with the Zatoichi. But, again, it's unofficial because this whole history of this movie, which they talk about in the special features, is batshit crazy because Jimmy Wang Yu did the first two, and then he left, and then he had a huge thing where Shaw was suing them, and he was making movies in Taiwan instead, and with actors from Shaw Brothers movies. So, let's just get into the story of the One-Armed Swordsman, 1967. The director is infamous director from Hong Kong films. He did a slew of them. Stuff like Five Deadly Venoms, and he was, if I'm not mistaken, the gay director who always kind of put forth a lot of like shirtless guys in his films and incredible violence. And the commentary on this disc is wonderful because it talks about his quotes on violence. And I'm always interested to see how directors talk about violence in films and how they, I don't want to say like justify it because it's a film. I don't think you need to justify anything like that if it's, but he says something as long as it is genuine and done truthfully, you'll never get in trouble or you never should feel bad about it. And hearing that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like Sam Peckinpah came from that school, and I kind of understand what he's getting at. Because for 1967, some of the Shaw Brothers movies do get violent, especially when you start getting the early 80s and you get to their weird horror films, like Corpse Mania and Human Lanterns. Those are violent films, and they have nasty skinning deaths and maggots and stuff, and they're definitely pushing the boundary. But in 67, I was watching this, and I was noticing the gore and blood and the color of blood. I was like, this is pretty fresh when it comes to blood. I know 67 was Bonnie and Clyde, and we had that crazy trajectory of violence since then, and it was still before with like Herschel Gordon Lewis and a bunch of other, and the Coffin Joe movies, but still, like, the violence in this Hong Kong movie for the time was a little surprising. Now, I had seen some of the Japanese movies with some violence in the early 60s as well. But the story is as follows. This swordsman basically defends his master when he's poisoned from a group of people and he dies. He begs his master, please take care of my son. It's all I ask. And, of course, the master agrees. He is a brilliant kind of martial artist guy. And he raises his son in this guy's son in Jimmy Wang Yu. And he is like the star pupil. So much so that this master's daughter starts to resent him. She seems to be in love with him, but also resent him. Also, the other teachers seem to resent him. All the other students seem to resent him. Everybody resents Jimmy Wang Yu because he's that fucking good. He is kind of egotistical and everything like that. And there's this big kind of arguing and fighting and everything, and he decides to leave, but not before he loses his arm. I won't tell you how, I won't tell you who does it, but it is definitely somebody that shocked me to do it. So I thought this film was going to be a revenge film for him, getting back at the people that took his arm. But that's not exactly what happens. So he is taken in by a woman who helps him and nurses him back to health, and he realizes it's very frustrating being such a great martial artist. Now he has to learn everything with one arm. He finds a book that was from his childhood, from his father, I believe, that's partially burned, and he starts to learn how to fight with one arm. But there is also kind of an invading group of villains in here that hate his old master, right? His old master, I think it's long legs, long death, or something like that. And he cannot stand his old master. So he has a vendetta. He starts to pick off all the students that Jimmy Wang Yu used to belong to that school. So what happens is, of course, Jimmy Wang Yu is the last hope. To face off and save his old school from that. But the bad guys have developed a certain weapon to take out the old school, and because how they fight, their style, it's countered, and they're getting their guts slashed out. But Jimmy Wang Yu has learned to fight with one arm, so he is their kryptonite. So that's basically it. It's violent. There's a lot of bad characters. There's good fight scenes. Although the fight choreographing, I was looking at other people talk about it, and they're like, I don't think it's up to snuff, and I can see where they're getting at that. But it is a little kind of comical with like the things, and then they cut it gets repetitive, but the story is really good. It's got a gritty kind of ness to it that I don't think a lot of the Shaw Brothers have typically. I wouldn't say it's as whimsy, if that makes any sense. It doesn't seem as whimsy as a lot of the other Shaw Brothers kind of martial arts movies. Some are gritty. I would say the Five Deadly Venoms is kind of has a grit to it and everything, almost like a thriller aspect to that one. But I really like this One-Armed Swordsman movie, and of course, later on, like I said, they talk about this in the special features. They would say that Jimmy Wang Yu kind of mixed his character of the Chinese boxer and the one-armed swordsman to make the one-armed boxer. And I think I remember loving the Chinese boxer. That's the one where we have the group of all the villains from all around the different world that he has to face off against, or is that one-armed boxer? One of them. And I've seen them both, and I was just amazed at how good that one was and fun. And this is a pretty solid movie. Interesting. Now, I had not really had seeing anyone this time, like this violence and everything like that. I was like, oh, this is different for the time, and it definitely reflects. So we're gonna look at One-Armed Swordsman in the Shaw Brothers set here, disc 1, brand new 4K restoration from Celestial Pictures, of course, and that is a L'Immagine Ridvata Blu-ray presentation, newly restored uncompressed Mandarin and English mono audio, newly transmitted English subtitles plus hard of hearing subtitles for the dub, brand new audio commentary by David West, author of Chasing Dragons, and introduction to the martial arts film. Yeah, that is a very good commentary. Newly filmed appreciation by One-Armed Swordsman series by film critic and historian Tony Reyes, and that is where he kind of talks about the entire. Is this the one where he goes down? Well, that's a different, but yeah, he talks about the film and whatnot, and I think he gives a lot of the history on Jimmy Wang Yu and how he was basically like blacklisted from Shaw and all that kind of stuff. Very interesting storyline. And then we have Interview with Actor Wang Yu, filmed by Frédéric Arbrosini in 2001. I think I'm mispronouncing that. That might be French. And then we have an interview with actor Chow Chow. Interview with actor Ku Fang. Appreciation above the director Chang Chu's work by film historian Sam Ho, filmed in 2003. Interview with Daniel Lee, director of What Price Survival, filmed in 2004. One Arm Side Hustles, a brand new video essay by Brandon Bentley on Wang Yu's career playing amputee protagonist. And that's interesting and fun. Theatrical trailers and trailers for other films by the director. So very cool stuff. The first disc is a winner in this one. I love these Shaw Brothers sets. I just wish I had all the time in the world to watch absolutely everything Shaw Brothers. But yeah, we're out of here. The next one here is Broken Oath from Eureka Films, and this is 1977 Hong Kong flick, of course. And this one is kind of different because it is an unauthorized remake of Lady Snowblood, one of the best Japanese revenge films ever made. Now, it's been a while since I've watched Lady Snowblood. I loved it when I saw it. It's been over 7 years. It's probably close to a decade when I saw that film. So Broken Oath, I popped this in, and right away we have this poor woman who is basically a group of thugs on the road basically attack her husband, who's a general. And we kind of see glimpses of everything like that. This woman is put into prison, and they tell her there's two cuts on the film. Actually, there's the theatrical, and then there's the extended cut, which has more brutality in it. So they going by the brutality scene, the long scene, they tell her that she's going to be tortured in here, and if she listens, everything will be fine. And she's in this hardcore women's prison. So we got part women's prison flick, of course, and they paddle her, and that's in here. They kind of show what the prisoners do. And after a while, she seems to kind of form a bond with one of the older prisoners. I can't think of her name. And we realize she's pregnant with her husband's kid. We have a whole flashback of what happened to her and all these kind of bad guys and everything. And we learn who they are a little bit. And we start to see her develop this relationship. And of course, she dies. And she does the most selfish thing in the world. She says, please train my daughter to go kill these people and everything like that because it's what I want. And this revenge, they must not get away with it. So her daughter grows up after she gets out, looks up somebody from the prison who is a pickpocket, and they become fast friends. There's also kind of another character that not the pickpocket, but she raises her and everything like that. And there's another character that's a pickpocket that becomes like close with them, and they kind of have this whole relationship and everything like that. And she basically starts her whole revenge kind of thing, and she's looking for everybody at first. And at first the lady wasn't going to tell her, but after a while she decided to. Because these guys are just trash and no good. I can't remember the series of events that led her to do it. But the first one is kind of somebody that runs a brothel. We have a gambling den, and then a brothel. So all of them seem to be really shady people. There's a lot of other people that enter the picture, and they're kind of mysterious, like a guy that may help her, or somebody that may be selling her out, and all sorts of things like that. There's also a whole group of kind of like agents that are infiltrating the gang to try to figure out, because they're going to do something awful. So it complicates things. It's not really clear-cut, this one. It's kind of a convoluted storyline with a lot of different characters in here. You'll notice Sammo Hung, which I didn't. I actually did not notice that was Sammo Hung until I listened to the commentaries by, Army Venema and Mike Lanner and Frank Jin. They both have two different versions. Frank Jin's on the theatrical, and Venema and Leader are on, is it Mike Leader or Leader? I think it's Leader, are on the extended version. So they were like, that's Sammo Hung right there. I saw his name in the credits, I think, and I always pay attention to that because he's my favorite, and I did not recognize him. He looks so different in this. He plays one of the kind of main bosses, like thugs. There's two of them, and they got crazy weapons, as all Hong Kong villains should have. It's kind of like the Hong Kong villains and the Street Fighter villains from the Sonny Chiba movies all should just be weird characters with weird weapons, and like they always make them badass. But so of course she starts picking them off, and things get overly complicated when we realize that maybe some people have some regrets and some different things like that. But I enjoyed this one. The end's pretty good, pretty violent, of course. Good bad guys, good violence, good story. I love a revenge story. Overall, Broken Oath is a good one. As far as the special features are concerned, we have a new artwork by Gregory Sakri, and then we have two 2K restorations, two 2K restorations for the theatrical and the extended, Mandarin audio, and optional English dub for theatrical version. Optional English subtitles newly translated for this release. Brand new audio commentary and theatrical version by East Asian film expert Frank Jin, and brand new audio commentary on the extended version by action cinema experts Mike Leader and Arnie Venema. Broken Oath and Appreciation by Andrew Heskins. Female Revenge Scorpion vs. Katana. Patrick Amalson. How do you say that? Macias talks Broken Oath and Lady Snowblood. Yeah, plus a limited edition collector's booklet featuring new writings by East Asian expert Gina Marchetti and Kung Fu Cult Masters author Leon Hunt. So it's loaded. There's a bunch of stuff on here to listen to. Yeah, I also listened to the one by Patrick Macias. And that was good. I enjoyed that. I've seen him before on other releases, and he seems to be a fountain of information as well. Just tons of good information. What I really like about the commentary with Venema and is that they're actually located in Hong Kong, or they've lived in Hong Kong for some time. So when they bring up the the prostitution den or the whorehouse, if you will, which is what they call it probably in the film. It's they have first-hand experience on how to talk about how the rules and the laws would work in Hong Kong. And I was like, that is interesting stuff, because there's always going to be a cultural difference between, any country's films that you're watching, especially period pieces. But they bring this up and say, well, it necessarily wasn't too illegal, and it's less looked down upon for people to do that kind of stuff in Hong Kong than it is in America and in the more Western world. But overall, I thought it was a good commentary. I learned a lot about the movie, learned a lot about the culture, too. Their commentaries always do that. Overall, they know about everything there is to know, and there's so many character actors in here, and there's only so many actors in these films. I'm recognizing so many people in here, but good baddies, good fight scenes at the end, and just deserves revenge. But there's a cost, and I should mention this. I should mention how cool our lead, I guess heroine or protagonist, uses scorpions to fuck people up. She just throws scorpions at people and they get stung and they die. It's just a really awesome touch to it, and I should bring that up. But yeah, the scorpion kills are amazing. But they're little scorpions too, the dangerous ass ones. So good movie, Broken Out. Check it out, Eureka Films. All right, since it is Italian Horror Month, I squeezed in one here. We have Delirium, photo of Gioia. I'm not 100% how to say that. This is a Lamberto Bava movie from 1987, released from Vinegar Syndrome here in glorious 4K. Now, Lamberto Bava, obviously the son of Mario Bava, and he had done a bunch of movies before this, including Macabre, Blast Fighter, Demons, and just a slew of stuff like that, A Blade in the Dark. So this is probably one of the only horror films by Lamberto Bava that I've not seen for some reason. I do not know why I've never seen this film. And watching it, I was like, oh, this is like the heyday of stuff I loved, because I'm a huge fan of Demons and all those kind of movies from that time. As a bunch of people I love in here, including a couple people from Demons, including Ripper, and of course the young guy who is the peeping Tom in this movie is also in Demons. Can't think of his name, but we have George Eastman pops up in here, Daria Nicolodi. So it's just tons of people in here that I love. Not huge roles for all of them, but decent sized roles. This is a fucking weird ass movie. I don't know if it's more slasher, more giallo, or just a kind of a surreal bonkers ass movie. In 4K, it looks phenomenal. It looks great. Vinegar Syndrome did a really good job cleaning this one up. So the plot is as follows. Our lead character here, who's in Anthropophagus, that's the movie I know her from, and she was kind of a nude in a lot of films, who plays Gioia, I don't know, I'm going to say Gloria, just to make it easier on myself. But she runs kind of like a model magazine with a lot of like risque pictures, and she takes in the beginning we see this kind of model shoot and everything like that. She's beautiful women and got men and everything like that taking pictures in this poolside, and she's like a direct competition with this older lady who's also doing the same thing. So they're kind of at each other's throats, kind of dueling fashion magazines, and she's doing these pictures and everything like that. And there's a peeping Tom there that's I think is directly involved with a car accident that she was involved with. Don't want to get the details about that, but people lost their lives, and it's a very depressing thing. There's a lot of people that are broken up about it in the film. So what happens is he's got some rear window peeping Tom kind of element going on, watching these girls take pictures, but he's madly obsessed with our lead here. So you're like, okay, that's kind of a obvious red herring there. But when one of the models is leaving that night, she is brutally murdered and thrown into the pool. She is stabbed with a pitchfork. But that's not the only thing that happens here. What happens here is before she's killed, her head turns into an eyeball. I'm sure it's on the cover here. And that is just some weird kind of surrealistic kind of nightmare deal. And then she is killed. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? And that kind of happens with every murder in the movie. At one point, there's a beekeeper scene. I won't get into details about that. The kills and stuff are very bizarre, very weird, very surreal, very artistic, and just overall kind of cool and add a weird element that's not typically in these movies. And this is kind of the time when a lot of the Italian horror films that had any sort of money were just being real weird and grandiose, and eventually, of course, it would kind of wash away very shortly after this, probably, really. But yeah, so what happens is we also are introduced to her brother, who is also the photographer and whatnot, and we got tons of red herrings. Daria Nicolodi is like a friend of hers, so you're like, who is it? Who could it possibly be? And as it progresses, we learn more and more about her backstory, and we see more and more of her body, of course. How could you not? There's a hilarious scene where she goes out to check something, and there's like, I think it's rain, or it's like a sprinkler, and she's wearing a white shirt, and her like breasts are just basically exposed, like not really, but like you see right through a wet t-shirt contest, if you will, and it's just like so hilariously put on, like you're just like, it's ridiculous. This movie's also very horny. There is a sex scene with George Eastman and her at the time, and they're both in like a bathtub. And I was just like, that's kind of strange, you know. Because, you know, at this point, George Eastman's already 45 years old. One of my favorite kind of character actors in Italian horror movies. And he's also a writer and stuff like that. But overall, the movie is fairly entertaining. The end is kind of a letdown. It's a typical kind of thing to do in these movies, who the killer is and how it happens and all that kind of stuff. But overall, I don't dislike the movie. I think it's fun. I think it's kind of a beautiful looking movie. I don't think it ever matches anything quite as good as, like, you know, his Demons films, or even you know what? I mean, it does have. It does. I'm trying to think where I would put this at. It's been so long since I watched A Blade in the Dark. I don't think it's better than the Demons movies. I don't know if I like it better than Macabre. Probably around the same level of Macabre. Although that's a much more serious movie, and it's comparing like apples and oranges. But overall, it's an entertaining movie. I had the DVD, and then I had a Blu-ray, and now I have a 4K, and I finally popped in the Delirium, which don't be confused with the Renato Pacelli Delirium from 1972, which is an Italian flick, or I think 1979 Peter Maris movie, which made the Video Nasties list, which Severin I think put out. So there's a lot of movies called Delirium, even from this time frame. But overall, I enjoyed this one. Weird ass movie, full of features, of course. The 4K disc contains a 94-minute feature, and then we have, of course, a commentary with Eugenie Ercolani and Troy Howarth. Good commentary. Talk about the lead actress's career, Lamberto Bava's career, kind of his personality, how he was a little bit more shy than his father and everything like that. Well, not shy, I don't want to use that term. Basically, how he was a little bit more, less polite than his father, but also shy. So there we go on that deal. More yelling on set, I guess I'll say. But they also talk about the career of all these people and the film, of course. And they do mention George Eastman being a little harsh on Lamberto Bava and a little harsh on his films in general, which I always notice it kind of does a lot of times. And then the Blu-ray disc has, of course, everything on the 4K, but we have Nightmare Delirium, making of documentary featuring interviews with Bava, George Eastman, art director, cinematographer, meet the photographer, interview with actor David Brandon. I forgot to mention David Brandon, yes, from Untold, the Caligula, the Untold Story, which I think I watched last week, and he's also in Stage Fright by Michele Soave, and then Peeping Carl, interview with actor Carl Zinni, who is of course the guy from Demons and go on to be in Graveyard Disturbance by Bava, 2 Meters of Fear, an interview with actor Luigi Montefori, which is of course Eastman. Got a fun role in here. Those Who Bite and Those Who Don't, interview with first assistant director Roberto Palomarini, dressing Gioia, interview with costume designer Nicoletti Ercoli, maybe. Inside Delirium, an archival interview with the art director, Snapshots of Murder, an archival interview with director Bava, Stories from the Bathtub, archival interview Eastman, Murders in Red and Blue, or archival with cinematographer, and then archival interviews with Bava, Eastman, and Brandon. So this thing has so many fucking features. It's Blu-ray is region unlocked. It's region free, and the 4K is of course region free. Fun movie, great release from Vinegar Syndrome. Another one that I had not seen for odd reason. Alright guys, bear with me. I got 7 2024 releases. I'm just like dove head first in there or something like that. A little distraction from 82, I know. I'm getting back to it. I still got some 82 movies too. But the first one up is Street Trash. Now this is a sequel. Kind of reboot, I would say it's a sequel. It's by Ryan Kruger, who did a movie called Fried Berry, South African director, which I didn't get a chance to see. I meant to see it. It looked fun, looked cool. Now, so South African's a weird place to remake Street Trash. Street Trash originally, who directed that? Geez, I know Roy Frumke's produced it, and was it Jimmy Monroe directed that one, or is he the Steadicam operator? Regardless, Street Trash 1987 is one of my all-time favorites. Just kind of gritty, crazy-ass movie with just a really fun cast, great special effects. Just one of those ones that was kind of a discovery when I was younger and just kind of blew my mind. Just so batshit crazy and so well done for what it was on a budget and everything, that grittiness. So the Street Trash remake, or sequel, it's a sequel actually. So I was kind of interested in this, definitely. I love the original, and I was like, oh, legacy kind of sequel to Street Trash. What a world. So this one takes place in kind of your post-apocalyptic kind of totalitarian, over-hyperalized, like crazy capitalistic world, right? Basically, he has a corrupt mayor in this town. He's ruined everything. He hates homeless people, and there's a huge homeless population now because all the small businesses are being bought up, and everybody has to have a government job, and everybody's getting put on the street and everything like that. So there's tons of homeless people in this area and everything like that. And there's just all sorts of terrible shit going on in society. Basically, just kind of people, what they think society's going to look like in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatnot. So we kind of follow a group of homeless people, kind of similar to the first one, but this group is more tight-knit. We have our lead kind of guy who's like a middle-aged guy, and he's kind of the main guy, but there's like 3 or 4 other homeless people that hang out, like Chef, and a couple guys that cook a lot of drugs. And then we're introduced to a newer character, a younger lady who kind of joins the bum group because she just lost her job. Yeah, and that's kind of the plot here. Now, instead of like Viper being just kind of like a subplot of the film, Viper is now in control, basically. It's been like discovered or whatnot, or it's being used as like a bio weapon or something like that. So they kind of put it into like a gas form kind of deal, and what they're doing is they're kind of planning on putting it in drones, which is very, I guess, topical, and spreading it around the small town, spraying it in homeless people's faces to get rid of them. And of course they're going to melt. So this is a melt movie, if you guys are not familiar. So first thing I'll say is I think the color palette, some of it's kind of cool. Of course, you know, when people melt, Street Trash originally had the great blues and greens and stuff when people would melt, and kind of kicked them in the ass because they thought, well, we'll just dull it down. When people melt, it'll be crazy colors, and they'll think, it's cartoonish, we'll get away with it. Somehow made it more disgusting. And this one kind of follows the pattern in the different melts. But I like kind of the locations they use are cool, and some of the lightings in the background I think is kind of a nice touch. So the thing that I always noticed about Street Trash, besides its complete mean-spiritedness and goofy, and not goofiness, but just mean-spirited and gross kind of humor at the same time, was the amazing camera work. And some decent acting in it. Good character actors like Pat Ryan, and I can't think of the guy who plays Bronson. That was the cop, but yeah, no, Bronson's the guy who runs the junkyard. He's fucking awesome at that. So it's just like some pretty solid James Lorenz is in here. Good character actors that do a good job in here. And there's this mean streak about Street Trash that I have a very weird, gross sense of humor that is kind of mean-spirited when it comes to films, if anyone asks. They know that. And I love the humor in Street Trash, as mean-spirited as it is. So the thing about this new Street Trash movie, they definitely carry over that gross out humor, right? It definitely has the gross out humor. It definitely has the kind of, which I don't necessarily think, I know that Street Trash is definitely driven by gross, the original is driven by gross out humor, but it's more a mean-spirited humor as well. This one more relies on the gross humor, and it feels more like a buddy bum movie, like instead more like a buddy cop movie. And in the original Street Trash, it just was less of that, almost kind of like mean-spiritedness, although there was friends. But so the group of bums are, of course, going to be the ones that stand up to the mayor and his corrupt, evil soldiers. So I like the plot. I think it's decent enough. I think it's cool. I appreciate the ambition. I do. I really do. There's tons of characters and all that kind of stuff going on. And I like the locations and the color palette. What I didn't like was almost everything else. And I don't want to be a dick about this because I really feel like an asshole about this because this is something that I don't think the director's lazy. I don't think... It feels like rushed. Everything feels really rushed. There's not much coverage. There's not much editing. There's not much camera work that I thought was very impressive. It's very stale camera shots. And the first film, and people are like, quit comparing it to the first film. This is something different. And I'm going to respond to this in every movie like this because you see what happens is if you put the name of a movie on there, it's a remake, it's a sequel, street trash, whatever it is, you automatically got that name value, so you're going to get people to go in there and watch it. So you're benefiting from that name. Yes? But at the same time, you're going to be held to a certain standard. You're going to be directly compared to it. And that's the negative of it. You can't have the positive and not the negative. And so if it's a direct sequel, I directly have to compare it to in tone and how it feels and whatnot. If it feels like the original Street Trash or if it belongs with the original Street Trash. And I'm not so sure it does. That's just personal opinion. It doesn't fucking matter. These are all opinions. And I've seen tons and tons of people that absolutely love this movie. If you're looking for more of like a more modern day trauma, more Necrostorm in the vein of a Tater City or something along the lines like that, which I like some modern day trauma, and I do like some Necrostorm movies, then this is kind of what you're in for. The humor is very subjective to me. And this is more of the, hey, I'm not gay, but I sucked a dick for $10 kind of humor. And it's like, that only works so much for me. And sometimes it just has to have a little finesse to it. Like Dirty Work kind of has that kind of stupid humor like that. And I think Dirty Work's the funniest movie ever, right? Hey, there's a dead hooker in a trunk. I'm like, the way it's played out, the way it's done. The humor doesn't really work for me. I didn't care for many of the characters. I thought a lot of them were very bland, kind of boring characters. I thought a lot of the dialogue was very boring. And I thought a lot of the interactions were unfunny. It wasn't funny to me. But that's not it either. Because the movie opens up with trying to do the chase scene, its own version of the chase scene. And that chase scene in the original is just brilliant, really funny, really epic, really crazy. And this is less than that. And it's a worse scene. And if you're going to remind me of a great scene, try to at least match it. And it doesn't. The sequel should be bigger and better. It's bigger in some aspects, but it's definitely not better. And I know the budgets are going to be completely different, not even fair to compare them. I'm sure of that. And like I said, it's just me. I don't think it's the worst movie ever. I don't think it's like a fucking 1 out of 10 or something like that. I'm like right in the middle. Like a 5 out of 10. Like I appreciate some aspects about it, but other things just don't work for me. Like I said, how do I enjoy a movie where I didn't like any of the characters? I didn't like any of the dialogue. The special effects is fun. They're gory. There's plenty of them, but they're not as well done as the original. And everybody that's going to have a meltdown, when you see them, they look like a Dick Tracy character. They look like they walked off the set of Ryan Nicholson's Hangar. And they're just like, they're all like, oh, that guy's going to melt. You know why I know? Because he doesn't have a name. And he's a nobody character in the movie. And he looks like he's wearing like 16 layers of, latex or something like that. So I knew like he was going to melt. Some of the melts are fun. A lot of it is just like kind of bubbles and like bladder effects. And they pop out. There's nothing ever as creative as something like somebody flushing themselves down the toilet, which is just insane and poetic in its disgustingness, right? Or they do recreate the explosion at the end, but it's not as good either. The big guy exploding, it's just strange, There is a crazy kind of like super action-packed moment at the end that the whole like third act is all action. Sometimes it's really hard to know what the hell's going on because the editing and stuff like that. There's some scenes that I don't know if it's done for humor or just like lack of coverage where there's characters standing in an aisleway talking at like 5 minutes, no cuts, no inserts, no nothing, and it's not a well edited scene. There's, for example, I'm going to spoil some things here, so I'll get to my last point before I start spoiling some things. The movie is too precious with its characters. It thinks that every character in the movie is a wonderful, amazing character. It doesn't have the mean street quality that the original had, which is what drove me into the humor in the first place. That kind of gritty New York shit. It doesn't have that mean streak to it. And that mean streak, it doesn't have a bite. This movie doesn't have a bite like the original. It's more concerned about buddies hanging out and having fun in Street Trash World, which could be something totally what you're into. And that does happen in the original. There's some buddy shit in the original, but there's like danger and like people dying and just like weird shit that's like, that was so off-putting, like creepy and gross. But it's just, the movie leaves way too many characters alive. It's too precious with its characters, and I don't think they're really that established for me to give a shit. in that kind of way. And I feel weird. It doesn't feel like street trash. So we're going. I think that a better movie would have literally been a sequel in L.A. because there's so many people that complain about the tent life, all the people living in the tents and everything like that. Maybe that was too realistic for them to go for. Well, Street Trash had balls at the time it was made. It was just fucking crazy. It was exploitation and insane, and people are like, fuck, man, this is fucked up. And I think that the sequel to Street Trash should have balls and should be fucked up. But hey, that's just me. I mean, and I think that doing an LA version in the tents with a group of people that hate homeless people going around and somehow finding a box of Viper and handing it out would have been a really cool movie. And then you could eventually have the homeless people attack this group of, maybe you could even have it be anybody you can imagine handing this stuff out. And it would be fun. But this one does have that aspect of the bum standing up to basically, the big corrupt, capitalistic world, like a violent, militarized police force. And I like that. That's fun. That's a cool idea. But besides that, I don't love this movie at all. I think it might be, you got to check it out yourself to see if you're going to like it. It's streaming on Screenbox. But overall, not for me. I'm not the target audience for this. Apparently, I am just too big of an asshole to enjoy, sweeter version of Street Trash. And I know people are like, oh, it's so crazy and disgusting and meats. It's sweet. It's a sweet version of the original, but it's not even like the original. It is shot on film, which is cool as fuck. But let me get to that scene. I was going to say, spoilers here. So in the beginning, there's a cop character that's chasing during the chase, and he loses his dick. Of course, his dick gets ripped off. Homage to the original, I imagine, the dick passing thing. So his dick gets ripped off. So this cop is in the movie the whole time looking for the homeless guys that he's mad at. And he's like, "Arr!" And then he runs into them, and they're like, use the gas, which the gas is everywhere, but the homeless people somehow aren't getting infected, even though they're wearing gas mask on and off, running through it. I don't fucking know. I don't care. That's the kind of shit that I wouldn't even hold it against it. It's like, whatever. But, so this guy you think is going to have this big meltdown and everything like that because he's with him and his guards and everything like that. And the guy just basically disappears off screen. He's like, oh no! And then you assume he dies, but then they're just showing these guys in helmets in the background, like with the mask on, like, oh, and you're like, why aren't we seeing this guy have a major meltdown? And there's, like I said, there's this weird scene where we see this badass kung fu character that comes in, this woman's whooping ass. In the very ending, we don't ever see who she is, really. She's not a character, but you're just like, oh wow, that's so, and it's like, you're like, not wow, but you're just like, okay, here's what they're gonna do, is kill her right away. And they do. They just kill her, and everyone's like, who? It's like, why? That's such a lame gag. But it's a gag that would be used in something like Naked Gun, which I love because that fits Naked Gun. It doesn't feel like it fits a Street Trash movie. It's just weird. This thing is all over it. It's nothing like. And that might not be a negative for you. And I can understand that. You can forgive it. You can forget it. Hey, it's its own thing. I'm fine with it. I can't. And I just didn't think it was very funny in the first place. So it's just something that's not for me. I give it a 5 out of 10. Ambitious. A lot of practical effects shot on film. There's some cool shit about it. If we're going for what I felt like, this is something that I wanted to love so bad. Just didn't like it. Sorry. Street Trash. Check it out. Not for me. Okay, next up is one from Hulu, and this is Hold Your Breath. I not heard too much about this one, except some mild positive things, but Letterboxd, a lot of people I know do not like this. I liked it just fine. This takes place in 1933 in the Dust Bowl, Oklahoma. This is Great Depression. A year later, Bonnie and Clyde would get gunned down. It's time of Dillinger, when people took these kind of criminals and put them on a pedestal because life was so fucking desperate it sucked. And our lead here is Sarah Paulson, and she is from a religious kind of whole kind of small community. She has 2 kids, and the dust is everywhere. People are kind of dying. Their husband is the father figure is out of the picture. He's not left them, but he's out making money and sending it back. It's just a really isolated, horrible place. And the kids are struggling. She's struggling. And you kind of learn that she might have had some mental illness previously, something in her sleep and everything like that. So, she's what you would say is somebody that could go crazy at any moment. This reminds me a little bit of course, Run, which was a movie she was in, where she played kind of a similar character. It also reminds me of 1922 with Thomas Jane, which is a pretty cool movie, the King adaptation. And then, of course, it 100% reminds me of The Babadook. It is pretty much the Babadook, and I don't want to spoil anything else by saying that, but it's the Babadook in the Dust Bowl of America during the Great Depression when your whole family could get swept away by a dust storm. That's pretty much it. But what happens is somebody kind of visits them, and they're reading this book called The Gray Man. It's like a horror story and everything like that. And then basically it's kind of the Sandman, right? He can turn into dust and sneak in your house, but it gets in your system and makes you evil. Very Babadook. And essentially what happens is you don't know if the mother's cracking under pressure or there is actually this kind of character. There is a being that comes to the house, and you don't know how true everything is that he says. He kind of reminds me of a Xander Berkeley from The Dark and the Wicked, that kind of character that shows up. He's like, he's a kind of an evil presence, but this guy is a little bit different. You don't know exactly where he falls on and everything like that. And as it progresses, it's a pretty solid kind of, I wouldn't say frontier movie because it's not a frontier, but the kind of idea that you're driven mad to be isolated like this, to constantly have this sand breaking down on you. I like the performances from everyone in here. Sarah Paulson's really good, really twisted performance. I mean, like a tormented performance is what I'd say. The daughters are good, the side characters are good. Overall, solid movie. I think it's rated like PG-16 or some shit like that. I don't know the rating system on there, but it's not too gratuitous, but there is some death in here. Overall, I like the movie. I know a lot of people don't. It's solid kind of psychological horror, but I feel like at points it feels almost really supernatural. Some great imagery, of course, with the dust and everything overtaking everyone. But great location for a horror movie. I'd like to see more Dust Bowl horror. Desert horror is always good. Scary, isolated stuff. But a good film. All right, next up is The King Tide. Now, this is made in Newfoundland, which is Canadian, if I'm not mistaken, like kind of isolated island deal. And this movie I had heard a couple good things about. Now, it's more fantasy, thriller than horror, but I think it dips into the horror category here. So what we have here is an isolated village, and one day this kind of boat washes ashore, and they get in there, it's like tipped over, and they find a baby in the cabin, and this one family is kind of pushed to take care of it. They're told that they should take care of it, so they take care of the kid, and come to find out over time that this kid has grown up to about 7 or 8 years old, that they have the power of healing. So if somebody's physically hurt or mentally hurt or damaged, this person has the power of healing. So this town becomes completely isolated because they have no need for a doctor. All they do, the men drink and they fist fight for fun because they can be healed by this healer. And then one day something tragic happens where our character seems to have some sort of traumatic event happen to them, our healer, and she's no longer healing just right or healing correctly. This kind of pits odds against each other, her parents and the local doctor and all these other people and everything like that. And we start to have all these people kind of fighting inwards and everything like that. This small town that's known each other for hundreds of years. But yeah, that's kind of the plot here. It gets really complicated and really crazy at the end of the movie. It's very intense at the end. The characters are well established. The dynamics between them, their relationships are between them is really good. There's deceitfulness. It's very dark and gloomy looking, of course, depressing because the location, it kind of has to be. Normally I'd hate that, but it's like it has to be for this. But overall, I really like this movie. I don't want to talk about too much and too many spoilers, but it's really well done. It's a really well done, fucked up movie that talks about human nature and the fear of aging and what if you didn't have to worry about aging, but it all was dependent on this one thing. But it is a great movie about a small community and how when something is put forth like that and everything changes, how people can change too and look out for their best interest. And a great film, The King Tide. I would really recommend checking it out. Not anything quite like this year, but good stuff. Very good film. Recommended. All right, the next one up is The Tide. Now this is a new film as well, and this is shot at Mount St. Michael, which is in like France, and it's like a crazy place where people go to this like castle, and the shore, the water comes in, the tide, and you can walk there, but the tide comes in very quick, so it can be very dangerous. So what we're following is a group of 4 friends, 2 couples, and they're going to go here and have a great time. Right in the beginning of the film, they're bickering and arguing, and they're completely unlikable and stupid. They're late already to the thing. It's like everybody's pointing fingers and blaming. They finally get there. They're kind of reprimanded by the the guide, and throughout the movie we kind of watch them argue and bicker, and then we realize that maybe something else is going on between these people that we realize. Somebody has a haunted past and everything. They get to the castle, they walk around, and as it goes on, the characters become more annoying, more idiotic, and you really don't give a shit at the first 10 minutes. At the first 15 minutes of the movie, I couldn't stand anybody, and it's not the way that you want to watch a movie where the characters are interesting or different, where you're like, man, Captain Rhodes is a prick, but he's great. You know, like, they're not interesting. Like, they're not interesting characters. They're just completely despicable and boring and stupid, and it's not like I wanted to watch them die. I wanted to not watch the movie. So that's kind of where we go here. The end has a little twist, of course, where you kind of figure out something like that is happening. There is a kind of a supernatural bend to it, I would say. Overall, The Tide is something that I would not recommend. Stick to King Tide. It's a much better movie. And kind of skip this one. It's one of my least favorite films of the year, if not the least favorite, but that's The Tide. Next up, we have Salem's Lot, which was shelved for a few years, actually, and I heard nothing but negative things. Everybody told me it was going to be the worst movie ever made. The original Salem's Lot film was made in 1979 as a TV film by Tobe Hooper. There was a theatrical version for overseas. There was one made in the early 2000s with Rob Lowe and everything like that. So this is based on, of course, a Stephen King book. So yes, Salem's Lot. I didn't really know what to expect by this, but we have a writer returning back to his hometown to kind of write about some things like that. This is like, I think it's a 2-hour movie. It's not super long, but not super short either. Everything's like 2 hours now. So, of course, the writer wants to come back to his old hometown and write about what is the house called. I cannot think of this evil house that's in the whole series and everything like that. But yeah, that's what he wants to write about. I gotta admit that when this movie first started, I was looking at the cast. What's so brilliant about the first one from '79 is there's so many great character actors in it, right? You're starting off, you're like, well, you got Reggie Nolte, you got James Mason, you got Elijah Cook Jr., you got Jeffrey Lewis, you got so many people in the fucking movie, Fred Ward. That it's just an amazing cast. This one, I was watching the cast, I didn't recognize anyone except William Sadler. But thankfully, the cast is pretty solid, and the acting's pretty good. This feels like it should have been directed by somebody like Mike Flanagan. Like the script or something, maybe he could have fleshed this out. But I know that stuff was cut. It was supposed to be 2 movies, and it didn't really work out that way. But overall, I really liked this. I didn't think it was bad at all. I enjoyed it. There's been a couple positive things. It's not nearly as bad as everyone says it is. The small town feel is pretty decent. It is a little rushed. Things do happen a little quickly. But of course, what we have here is an ancient evil has entered this town. They run an antique shop, which is something that Stephen King has something against antique dealers, right? Needful Things, the same deal. And they're vampires. And they're going to spread their evil here, and there's definitely something evil with the town. That's why the vampires can start it in Salem's Lot. But I like the idea that the people start getting picked off here and there, and we are basically left with a group of survivors, a young boy, and our kind of writer and a couple other people and everything like that. And it's up to them. I really like the school, the principal or teacher that gets involved. He's got a great character. He's got a great introduction because he's breaking up these bullies. And I was kind of refreshed right off the bat because, you know, usually when a bully starts a fight in a movie and he's like, it wasn't my fault, I didn't do it, he started it. We didn't have that moment. He just was like, whatever, fuck off. And I was like, good. I like that bully in the film because come on. And then he's also like, and the teacher's like, it is what it is. He doesn't over punish the kids and everything like that. And I was just like, that was refreshing. That was actually nice. Instead of the constant, although 80s was guilty, it's like, I didn't do it, he did it. And then the teacher comes in and over punishes everybody or everything like that. So it just was refreshing to see that. I really like the touch with the drive-through. I don't think I ever read this book. I know I haven't read the book. So like, I don't know exactly how accurate everything is. It does feel like this movie is rushed. The special effects are decent. It's creepy. It just, the whole town overtaken by vampires is something really terrifying. And I did enjoy this one. I do like how the crosses light up. I think that was kind of a nice little touch, and how they actually push people out of the house. So overall, the Salem's Lot remake is not nearly as bad as what people were saying it is. Go in with, maybe a little, less expectations than you thought, and just watch it. I enjoyed it. I think it was cool. It was a nice little Stephen King-ish horror film. I say ish because it's not exactly, I do think it's not exactly maybe what you want when you watch a Stephen King movie, but it does have that small town feel and everything like that, and that evil and good versus evil deal. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid movie. Salem's Lot, 2024. Duh. Okay, next up is Grave Torture. by Joko Anwar, the Indonesian filmmaker who did the remake of Satan's Slave and Pedigore and some other things. Joko Anwar is a fantastic director. He's one of the kind of names that in horror I'm always excited to see what he's going to do next, right? So always like his films, always interested in his stuff. So this one I popped in, and you know what I say about a lot of films, especially Italy and Europe, they always have this weird relationship with religion. At times they seem to be overly ridicule religion, but at the same time, it seems to also have a belief in it. And I think that this film kind of feels the same way with grave torture. So the first act of this film, we have a family of four that run this independent bakery. They're struggling because a new chain restaurant chain bakery just opened up. They're 50% discount, and they're just losing business. They're having the family talk and everything like that. And a guy walks in. Spoilers. I'm going to talk about the first 5-10 minutes and everything like that to get the movie set up. A guy walks in, and there's some other people in the corner that look a little shifty. A guy walks in and he says, he offers him a glass of water to the young boy. It's the parents, young boy and young girl. Not too young, teens. And starts to speak with him. And he says, it is true. He says some weird religious thing and gives him a tape. And he says, don't go outside. What happens is the shifty people in there rob the register. The parents chase him outside. The son is cowardly, doesn't do anything. And a bomb goes off. Come to find out, this guy was a suicide bomber, and he ended up blowing up this whole street, killing a bunch of people, leaving these kids as orphans, because he had somehow heard true grave torture. With grave torture in Muslim faith, as people are tortured in the grave, their physical body and their spirit. And it's just that this guy overheard some people being tortured in the grave. So to get away from being tortured as he would in the grave, he wants to go kill, sinners, so he can secure his spot, not to be tortured. It's kind of the thing here. The son kind of believes it to a certain extent. Seemingly, they hide the tape. They don't tell the police about it, and they end up having to get shipped to an overly religious kind of place where it's ran by kind of a perverted piece of crap that takes advantage of the kids. As they grow up, we have this weird kind of very horrible escape where it's in a tunnel, and there's a lot of ghost shit and stuff like that, creepy imagery. And we learn that she's an adult, she works in a nursing home, and she's made it her life mission to determine that grave torture is fake. So she can basically point religion and say, hey, religious fanatic is what killed my parents, and they're dead because someone was a religious fanatic. So their whole idea is to figure out that grave torture is fake, and they want to find the meanest person they could find who they have a history with and check it. So there's a real nice twist partway through it. The first act is great because there's a really awful scene in here. It's not great because of this, but it's a great horrible scene that made me skin crawling, just depressing, where somebody has to walk over go down a hallway and walk over all these dead bodies that are not covered from the terrorist attack, and you're just that's horrible. And the third act is absolutely terrifying because I'm not going to spoil everything, but it's called grave torture. And we're going to see some of that shit in here. And the imagery is haunting. Stuff that I'd never really seen. It's CGI, but it works really well. It's scary as shit. It's just unpleasant as hell. Haunting imagery. And the middle act has kind of a lull to it where but it's not horrible. It's really all well done. The third act is scary as shit. Creepy. Bizarre. I love how they handle religion, religious people, religion beliefs in here and stuff like that. It just definitely feels like it has that kind of Euro kind of tinge to it, right? But of course, the Indonesian tinge too, because they're from a very religious kind of group, country. So I think that countries that are really religious, that make stuff like this, ridiculing religion, but also at the same time not completely shying away from it, you know what I mean, in a weird way, I think that they make the most interesting movies like this. And I think the folklore and the stuff like that is just great. It's well done, well acted, and just an overall kind of twisted movie. I would check out Grave Torture. Great stuff. Okay, next up is Lowlifes, and this is a Twohy original. So everybody's like, oh, Twohy makes shitty originals. They're terrible movies. They're not good. Whatever. But yeah, we're going to talk about a Twohy original here from 2024, Lowlifes. And everybody starts this off. Every reviewer heard it's there's a twist, so don't look into it. Now, I'm going to say this. There's not really a twist. It's obvious from the first 2 fucking frames what's going on here. Unless you're not really paying that close attention, or maybe everybody kept saying there's a twist, so I was looking at it with a twist in mind. But this is not a twist to me. This is fairly obvious, and that's not a negative. I think the movie's fairly obvious in what it's doing, and I think they're just more interested in flipping things on their head and having fun with it, in a similar way to the movie that The Hunt did. which I think was a really fun film. And I think this has the same kind of energy of the movie The Hunt. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about the spoiler here in Lowlifes. Overall, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. Great characters, moments where I'm cheering on characters, funny puns, just overall good kind of Hicksploitation at times, you think, possibly, if you're believing the twist. But overall, good film. So now I'll get into spoilers here. So what we have here is kind of a rich upper class family from LA. That's right. And they're traveling in this kind of beat down old RV that their family did. It's family tradition after all. And they're eating a lot of meat and they're traveling. So there's a family of 4. We have the very well-groomed father, the mother, and the teenage son, and the little older college-aged daughter. So right in the beginning, we kind of have them talking and introduced. Very cheesy kind of family kind of situation. And these kind of backwoods guys pull up and they say, hey, we're looking for our cousin. You guys seen him? And they're like, no, we haven't. And they kind of like have this weird altercation where it's not like a physical one, but they're kind of like getting very intense. And you can tell these kind of guys in the truck do not believe them. And they have their gun out. And you're like, oh, so you're thinking they're the villains, of course. But that's not necessarily what happens. So as we progress, because the puns and the silliness and everything, you can kind of tell what's going on here. So they end up giving this hillbilly guy a ride. And they're taking him back to his house, and they massacre him. In a gory detail, chop him up, and they're cannibals, which is a lot of fun. And they basically, anybody who's considered a low life, they take out. As it progresses, they end up going into this family, which would be your typical Hicksploitation movie where the rich city folk are hanging out at this like kind of poor backwoods house and they get massacred by him, but we're going to switch it on his head. So they start picking off these mostly good like southern people that are just showing them some hospitality and everything like that. But of course this family's not going to go quietly into the night. So we have family versus family. We dig into the characters, we show who they are, and some people have some different thoughts about each other and everything like that. It's gory, it's entertaining, and it's mean-spirited as shit at the end. A point where I was like, what the fuck? I was mad. But then in a good mad kind of way that they got me. They got me to feel something and upset me. But overall, I really like Lowlifes. Great performance, especially by our kind of, we have a couple leads here. The female leads in here are all great. The dad is fantastic. He's such an asshole. He's perfect for the role. You know, he's kind of in the vein of something like Mike Mendes' Real Killers, or the whole like cannibal puns and stuff remind me of Some Like It Rare, the French film. But this is overall a really cool movie, a dark comedy, but horror comedy deal. Just fun. Family versus family, clan versus clan, cannibal fun. I like this one, Lowlifes. Good stuff. Highly recommended, actually. One of my favorites of the year, I think. All right, let's get into those 1982 movies.
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you who loves and will survive. I've been waiting someone new to make me feel alive.
What's in the basket?
How do we know she is alive?
Say, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to... Please, stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop
All right, first one is from Spain, and it is Buenas noches, Señor Monstro, or Good Night, Mr. Monster. And this has Paul Naschy playing the werewolf again. Now, he's not Vladimir Danzinski, but he's playing the Wolfman for what? I don't know how many times, but this is kind of bizarre here. So, okay, what we have here is a kids comedy musical horror movie. That's right. We got 4 little subgenres here. This is definitely made for TV, if I'm not mistaken, but there is some language by the kids, which is funny. They drop the F-bomb, and I was like, hey, man, Spanish TV may not be the same. Or this is definitely a TV broadcast, which is the version I've seen. So we have here is 4 kids on a field trip. They kind of get separated from the main group of people, and they end up going in this like cave or something, and they end up being like finding a castle and everything like that. And of course, Dr. Frankenstein lets them come in. And of course, there is Count Dracula. There is Paul Naschy, who's the werewolf, but he's not a werewolf yet. We have Quasimodo. And of course have Frankenstein's monster that Dr. Frankenstein's working on. But they've all grown old, and they're all just kind of worthless, and they're worried that nobody fears or respects them anymore. And they really want to get their respect and make everybody fear the monsters once again, which is really fun because Paul Naschy being in this, because Paul Naschy started his career like in horror films, of course, making them and acting in them and everything like that. And when he started even doing the stuff he was doing in the late 60s, the Universal horror movies were dead and Hammer was on its way out, so like people weren't respecting those kind of horror films as they were. Later he would kind of play into that in Howl of the Devil, which is kind of like a send-off to that stuff as well in 88, but he also in stuff like 1 year later in 83 he does Beast with the Magic Sword, which is I think technically his last in the heyday of the Vladimir Danzinski werewolf movies. So it's funny that right in the middle of this kind of stuff here, he's still making those werewolf movies, that he kind of is so self-aware of it that he's playing a character of a wolfman who's completely broken down and depressed and lonely and sad and all that kind of stuff, right? So he's like these weak kind of versions of the monsters. They're already dead. And he already had started his career off being like making love letters to those old horror movies and being like the modern day, if he will, Lon Chaney Jr., or if he could, that kind of deal. So it's very fun and very self-aware of it. We have a great little musical number in here. Buenas noches, Señor Monstro. We go through the monsters and they're introduced by the kids, and the kids have these dance routines. It's incredibly cute. Maybe you'll throw up from the cuteness. I enjoyed it myself because, although I love my mean spiritedness of Street Trash, the original, I do like my kids' movies too, apparently. And I just thought that the kids were really funny. I thought they were great. I thought the monsters were cheesy and fun and good. And I like, of course, Paul Naschy. So what happens is, of course, the monsters want to get their fucking, their fear back. But Dracula's son's there, and he's siding with the kids. He's like, you're old, you just retire. So what happens is a series of hijinks where the monsters are getting outbested by a bunch of kids. And it ends in a dance-off where Frankenstein monster goes crazy and he kind of collapses. It's fun, it's cute, it's silly, it plays on the tropes of the classic monster movies and the classic castle stuff. I really enjoyed it. Is it as good as Rocky Horror Picture Show? No. Is it an absolute blast? Is it cute? Is it a love letter? At the same time, also just being an entertaining little fun romp for kids and adults alike? Yes. Buenas tardes. Is it tardes or it's buenas noches? Buenos noches, Señor Monstro, or good night, Mr. Monster. Love it. And at the end, they're in a wax museum, so it's just good stuff. I really like this kind of stuff, man. It's just, this is the kind of sweet stuff. Like, I got mad at the Street Trash remake for being too sweet, because maybe it's just too gross. And it's just, not too gross. I love gross. But it just doesn't fucking work. This works. This works. Every time sometimes there's just certain tones and shit. And this worked for me. I really like this one. But good stuff. Alright, guys, for the last few reviews, we're going single camera. My batteries are not holding out as much as they used to for some reason. Probably too cold in this room. I don't know. But next up is, I'm not sure how to pronounce this exactly, Vampirismus. Vampirismus? Vampirismus. And this is from, of course, 1982. Now, this is a TV movie directed by Giulia Questi, who did one of the TV, was it Devil's Game? From the previous year, from 1981. He directed one of those episodes. So he's kind of sticking with the 1980s kind of TV horror. He directed, I think, one of the Death Laden Egg, if I'm not mistaken, from 1969. So he's kind of dipped his toe in the gialli. I believe that was the one he did. But he's done some horror-oriented films besides this. So this one here, now I used AI subtitles, AI-generated subtitles, so who knows how close it was. I felt like it was pretty decent. Now this is not a very long one. It's a little over an hour, if I'm not mistaken. So Vampirismus. This essentially follows a story of a guy whose father just recently died, and he's coming back to like his home to take care of it, and there's like a cemetery there that has a great look, and it's like also frequented by the villagers, so he really needs to take care of this cemetery. He's incredibly busy. He wants to remodel the whole house. That's his complete focus. And then one day, right the first day he's back, I think, we have a visitor from this old woman who used to have some respect in the community, but some weird kind of shit happened where everybody kind of looks down on her, a bunch of scandals, and he knows something's wrong with that, but he doesn't really want to invite her in, but he's being polite. But then he sees her daughter, and she's gorgeous, and he immediately becomes smitten with her, so he invites her in and starts talking to them, and the mother falls ill, and he's like, you guys can stay here until she's better. Against the best advice of his uncle comes in, and he's like, do you know that she had a huge thing, and it was awful, and it was not good, and all this kind of stuff like that, and there's a bunch of scandals. So he kind of ignores it. Unfortunately, the mother dies, and he decides to marry the daughter without knowing her too well. And at first, he thinks everything's going to be okay, but she doesn't eat. She doesn't want to sleep with him, doesn't want to do anything, and she starts to get more and more ghoulish as it progresses. So you pretty much know where this is entering. I thought it was going to be more of a ghoul film, and Vampirismus or Vampirismus was going to translate to ghoul instead of a vampire, actual vampire. But the reveal on what's going on, we all pretty much know kind of right from the beginning what's going on. We do see a little bit of flashbacks into her previous life and stuff before she met him and whatnot, which is interesting. There's some brief nudity in here for a TV thing. But what ends up happening is the reveal is absolutely fucking haunting. Haunting enough to drive our main character insane, kind of in a Lovecraftian kind of way, right? But yeah, I thought the reveal was tremendous, creepy, that cemetery right in the middle of your house, kind of in the garden thing. But yeah, overall, this is a good, solid little TV horror movie that you have to be a little patient with. But overall, I liked it. I think it's good. I think it's interesting. Italian TV horror in the early 80s is pretty good stuff. Check it out. Speaking of television, we have a TV special that's like 40 minutes, even if it's that long. It is Bunnicula, the Vampire Rabbit, based on a series of books, which I have unfortunately never read. But yeah, this is kid stuff. This is 82 as well. I decided to check this out, so I was like, hey, again, this is a lot of weird TV stuff, a lot of TV stuff in this episode for 82. So I was watching this, and it's very cute, right? We have the family that's having trouble at their factory. I don't remember what they exactly make at the factory, but they're having trouble. Things are falling down. There's tons of close accidents. So they decided to close it down for the safety of the workers. They would never fucking do that at a factory. They'd let you die there. Don't tell anybody. But so they shut it down for the safety of the workers, as I said. And what happens is, the dad works there. The whole town relies on this factory. So everybody's going to go broke. And the kids, while they're leaving, decide that, they're just going to look in this box, and it's just a bunny, like sleeping like a vampire. Like, you know what? That seems like a great idea. Dad losing his job, the whole community suffering. Let's just take this clearly vampire rabbit home with us. before long, there's a funny scene in the supermarket where all the pumpkins fall out. And it's like, oh, shucks, that darn rabbit. But pretty soon, you know what starts happening? Vegetables start appearing white in the house, and then the neighbors start having their vegetables turn white. Who could it be? Who could it be? It's up to the dog and the cat to figure it out. But eventually there's going to be a happy ending. Bunnicula is going to do some crazy, awesome shit. Nobody's going to see it, and he's going to save the day. And so is the dog and cat that talk to each other are also going to save the day. It's fun. It's cute. It's TV, kids stuff from 1982. Entertaining. I like the animation, but overall, it's fun. Bunnicula, the vampire rabbit, and him sleeping in the coffin is about the cutest damn thing I've ever seen. He's just that's so cute. But, I'm an animal lover, so yeah, this one's pretty fun. Bunnicula. Okay, we're going to get into the Patreon pick, and it's another Laurel and Hardy, and I forgot I had this. The definitive restorations here, Laurel and Hardy 6-disc set. There's a Blu-ray version of this as well. So this has like all the movies on there. It has Sons of the Desert, Battle of the Century, Birthmarks, Bratz, Hog Wild, One Good Turn, Helpmates, The Music Box, The Chimp, Country Hospital. Or is that's County Hospital, Scram, Their First Mistake, Toad in the Hole, Twice Two, Me and My Pal, The Midnight Patrol, Busybodies, Way Out West, That's That, and The Tree in the Test Tube. And we're going to talk about Sons of the Desert here. So, I just had watched Way Out West. It's the only Laurel and Hardy I'd seen. And Laurel and Hardy is fun. It's a comic duo, of course, these two guys. But this whole movie, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, probably now people do, but it's the 30s, so it's expected, is basically, hey, man, my wife's going to be really mad at me. That's the whole basis of the comedy here. But, hey, I think it's funny. My grandpa had a lot of, my wife's going to be so mad at me, and it was pretty funny at times. But he did some stuff that would get you in trouble. But, So basically, the plot is Laurel and Hardy are part of the Legion. That they wear the fezzes on there. Both my grandparents were part of that. The Legion, American Legion kind of deal. And basically, they're supposed to go to this convention in Chicago. They live in L.A. or California. They're supposed to go to this convention in Chicago. Like they swear that they will. And of course, Stanley Laurel. Or Stanley Harlow. I think it's Laurel. Yeah, Laurel's the skinny one. He's a little worried about making the thing because he doesn't know if his wife's going to let him. And Hardy's like, hey, we're going to be fine. You could go. You say you'll go because you tell your wife what's what. They live right next door, of course, in comic detail. There's a really good gag where they keep locking each other out of the house and back and forth. And it's really funny. But when Hardy gets home, of course, his wife is even, more like, wears the pants. These guys do not wear the pants in their family is to bring in an old outdated saying, right? But so basically it's the comedy ensues there, right? They got to figure out a weird way to lie to their wife so they can go to this convention. But what they do is they go to the convention and they lie and say that Hardy is sick and he needs to go to Hawaii for some reason, and they go on this cruise because it will clear up his sickness. But what happens is the cruise sinks even though they don't go there, so the wives are worried sick about everything. And basically it's just really silly comic hijinks ensue where they're hiding out in the attic and they're making up elaborate stories of what happened. It's funny, it's goofy, it's a comedy of errors, and it's just all sorts of nonsense. Like I don't want to get yelled at and get deep shit. I like the two. They're funny. I like the interactions that they have and blaming everything and the bets. But it's a fun movie. Sons of the Desert. I love watching them in the fez hats too. Brings back memories of watching my grandpa and everything, grandparents and those kind of things and everything like that. So yeah, overall like this one, Sons of the Desert, good stuff. All right, we're going to get into questions, comments, and concerns, and all that stuff. Stephen LeBlanc, I'm new for a fan from your films. I miss the Jesus beard and hair. I'm glad you enjoy the films. I'm glad you're watching the channel, but I don't miss the Jesus beard and hair. That's what's most important, right? Wasted Time Control Shop. I think you're cool even with without all those movies, but I do enjoy looking at the covers and guts of the Blu-rays when you crack them and the updates in your collection. And the reviews. Feel better, man. I do. Thank you. Uzi Suicide 666. Feel better, Dave. What to do when you're sick? Watch more movies, baby. Indeed, indeed. Mr. Tony the Dead. Hey, Dave. Howdy, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Hudson. Hi, Dave. I have to praise you like I should, for I know no other YouTuber that watches and reviews movies every week like you do. If I had the money, I would be chucking it at you because you deserve it. Even when you're looking and feeling like shit, you always come through. And for that, sir, I salute you. Thank you. Eddie Daniels. Dave, I appreciate your lanky updates. I like your haircut. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie Daniels. I like my haircut too. And then we have Stephen Lapierre. You should grow your hair out again. Oh, we have Stephen LeBlanc and Stephen Lapierre. Huh. What is up with the hair comments? It's weird. Grow your hair out. Not that I really give a shit, but I mean, I don't grow my hair out because it's long and gray and I'm older and it's just, I don't like it anymore. Do Moviethon. If there is justice, Tobier replay will be on blue. If there is justice, and we all know there's absolutely no justice in the world, right? Check out Doomed, Hello, This is the Doom Show, and his YouTube channel. Angelo150, I wish you to get well. Thank you. Kentucky Tater, sorry you were sick. Get that pervert card sanitized. Nah, I like it dirty. I keep my pervert card dirty. Then we have Martin VP. Hope you feel better soon. Thank you for another informative episode. Thank you. Nick Moore from Belgium. Much as I admire the acting chops of Mr. McAvoy, I feel remaking Speak No Evil was a bit of a waste. The original is mostly in English, so why bother? Even if a feature isn't in English, if it's good, it's good. No need for reimaging. Think Nightwatch. Let the right one in. The OG versions are still fondly remembered. Can we say the same about their English language counterparts? Good to see that Alexander Aja is at the helm of another movie. I prefer the films he directs over the ones he produces. Never Let Go looks interesting at the very least, even if critics feel meh about it. I hope you'll enjoy Criterion's release of the Teen Apocalypse trilogy. I did, though I wish I had waited for the sale now because yikes, pricey. While I was content with the older second sight DVDs of the trilogy, this I'd wager will be the ultimate release, I hope. You're 100% correct about Sushi Girl. Why I checked the film out because I'm a Jimmy Duvall fan. Mr. Todd made that film. His performance is sheer perfection. His art will live on, but the man, he shall be severely missed. Indeed. Questions. Which is your favorite Alexander Aja remake? Didn't he produce the Maniac remake? I know he didn't direct it, but if we're counting productions, Maniac. But if we're not, I'm going to go with Hills Have Eyes. That was a good remake. The Piranha's fun too, but Hills Have Eyes. If we're not counting Maniac. Is The Exorcist 2 Heretic the worst movie there ever was and will be? Just saw it, and while I feel batshit, while it feels batshit cuckoo, I've seen worse. You know what? I don't think I've ever watched the whole thing. I know it's not the worst movie ever. We all know this. Loving the new hairdo, sir. You look like Sonic the Hedgehog's stylish older brother. I bet you're faster too. Take care. Absolutely not. Thank you though. Fetish Magic, sexy thumbnail. Have mercy on us, Mr. Parka. Ha. Hope you feel better soon, cutie. As usual, excellent work from your beloved sexy. From our beloved sexy Mr. Parker. Thank you. Coastline FX. Hey Dave, the film Caligula is not on here. I guess YouTube has intervened. Sorry. No, I just didn't timestamp it correctly. I'm a dummy. Way Up Dude, he gives the thumbs up. Thank you. Ken Coakley, I watched Tomier and Norroy after seeing your reviews last week. Tomier was pretty intense, especially in the beginning. When the guy opened the plastic bag to reveal a decapitated head whose eyes were still moving, her eyes, after seeing that sequence, I thought the film would be Eraserhead. When she got hired at the restaurant and all the guys went mad trying to get with her. I worked at a theater in the 80s where male employees would fight over pretty female employees. In the movie, it was disturbing, and at the theater, it was hilarious. Yeah. I know that feeling. I work at a factory, so there's very limited amount of females at the factory, and most of these guys are like middle-aged and like desperate, horny guys. So, like, when there's a female, they're all like, can I help you with anything? Like, it is what it is. Norroy had a brilliant filmmaking style combining found footage with news footage to make it look like it was grounded in reality. I was afraid that Mr. Hori, the super psychic with deep psychological issues, or the ugly Karen in the beginning, who yelled at the filmmaker, was the most frightening characters. The climax when the filmmaker follows Mr. Hoji in the dark had me riveted, although I could have done without the dead dogs. I watched Ghost Watch last month as part of my 31 Days of Halloween, in which I watched a different movie each night that takes place on or around Halloween. I was curious to see it because I hadn't seen it before. I liked it, but it could have been scarier. It reminded me of Geraldo Rivera's special, and where he opens Al Capone's vault. I like the banter between characters because I'm fascinated by British culture. I remember liking it. It's been a while, a couple years probably. Sarah Red, if you love the humor of Ghost World, you should read some Daniel Clone's comics. He wrote Ghost World, and his stuff is really funny. I'll have to check that out next for the information. So let's do the Patreon picks. We're going to pick 5 out of here. All these names. It could be anybody. It could be everybody. Well, it can't be everybody, but you get the point. So we have Joe Carroll, Our Evil 2017. Okay. Tom Broker, Shark Movie of My Choice. That's right. Then we have Art Figueredo, Hanzo the Razor. Very cool. There's 3 of those bad boys. That's 3. We have Tom Brooker, I Survived the Zombie Holocaust. That's 4. And last, well, certainly not going to be least, I can just feel it. It is Jim Simon, Naked, 1993. All right, sounds like some good ones here. If you've not been drawn out in a few weeks or a few draws, let me know, and I'll push you ahead a little bit. But yeah, I don't have any updates, so yeah, let's go. Let's get out of here. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, have a good one.